Ever look at a jute bag or maybe a rustic rug and wonder how it's made? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on the entire process. We're going to trace the incredible transformation of jute, all the way from a plant in a field to the finished product in your hands. So here's the game plan. We'll start with what jute actually is, the famous golden fiber. Then we'll get into its different types and qualities. After that, we'll walk through the blueprint for making yarn, really dive into the science of batching, and finally, check out the finished yarns and all the cool stuff they're used for. All right, first things first. Before we can get into the how, we've got to understand the what. So let's break it down. What exactly is jute? You've probably heard this phrase before, right? The golden fiber. It's almost always connected to jute, especially from Bangladesh. But why? What's so golden about it? Well, it's actually for two reasons. First, the obvious one, the fibers themselves have this beautiful, natural golden color, but it goes way deeper than that. Economically, jute is a massive deal, a huge cash crop for Bangladesh. It brings in a ton of money, making it a truly golden source of income. So it's golden in color and golden in value. Okay, let's get a little scientific here because this is a key term you've got to know. Jute is a bast fiber. All that means is the fiber comes from the inner bark of the plant stem. The best way to think about it is like a natural pre-made rope. You've got tons of tiny fibers all overlapping to create these long, continuous strands. And that structure right there is the secret to why jute is so famously strong and flexible. And if we zoom in even closer to the chemical level, you can really see where that toughness comes from. Check this out. A whopping 65% of it is cellulose. That's the main stuff plant walls are made of, and it's what gives jute its raw strength. The lignin you see there, that's kind of like the natural glue holding all those cellulose fibers together. But here's the thing, not all jute is created equal. The quality of that final product, how it looks, how it feels, even what it costs, it all boils down to the specific type of raw fiber they start with. That's why understanding how jute is classified is so important. Now, from a botany perspective, jute basically comes from two main plant species. You've got Corchorus capsularis and Corchorus olatorius. But for manufacturing, what really matters isn't the plant species itself, but the quality of the fiber it produces, which has a lot to do with the specific region where it's grown. So at the very top of the pyramid, you have JAT jute. This is the premium stuff, the best of the best. It's known for being really firm, having great color and length, and a beautiful natural shine, which they call luster. This top-tier fiber comes from just a few specific areas, like Mymensingh and Dhaka in Bangladesh. Okay, one step down from JET, you get what's called district jute. This is still a really solid, good quality fiber, but it's split into two types. You've got hard district, which is considered a bit better, and then soft district, which is grown in a lot more places. And yeah, those names pretty much tell you about the fiber's texture. And then at the bottom of the quality scale, there's northern jute. This is a lower grade. It's usually a bit duller in color, the fibers are weaker, and has this kind of fluffy, almost barky feel to it. But hey, just because it's lower grade doesn't mean it's useless. It's perfect for certain jobs where you just don't need that premium quality. So we've got our raw fiber, all sorted by quality. Now for the big question. How do you turn that tough plant stuff into a smooth, spinnable yarn? Well, this is where the industrial magic really begins. Take a look at this flow chart. I know, it looks a little intense at first, but it lays out the entire journey. You can see it starts right at the top with selecting the jute, and it ends all the way at the bottom with finishing and weaving. We're about to break down all the most important steps for you. So you can really boil the whole thing down to these 6 main stages. First, you select the fibers. Then they get softened and conditioned to make them workable. After that, a process called carding calms them all out. Then, drawing stretches them into a thin rope-like thing called a sliver. And finally, spinning puts the twist in to make the finished yarn. Okay, now we're going to zoom in on one of the absolute most critical steps in this whole prep phase. It's a stage that makes a huge difference in the final yarn, and it's called batching. So, what is batching? Honestly, the best way to think of it is like you're creating a recipe. You don't just use one kind of jute. You create a super precise blend of different qualities. A little jot here, some district there, all to hit the exact specifications for the type of yarn you need to make. And why go through all that trouble? Well, the reasons are all about efficiency. It makes those stiff fibers easy for the machines to handle. It adds just the right amount of moisture and flexibility. It lets you control the cost by blending expensive fibers with cheaper ones, and it cuts down on waste. It is all about optimization.
Now, a massive part of batching is applying something called an emulsion. Think about making salad dressing, right? Oil and water don't mix. You need something else, an emulsifier, to hold them together. It's the same idea here. This special mix of oil and water is sprayed onto the jute fibers to soften them up.
And here's a look at a typical recipe for that emulsion. And I bet the first thing that jumps out at you is that it's almost 3/4 water. It might seem weird, but trust me, every single ingredient here has a super important job. Let's look at why. The oil is all about lubrication. Its main job is to cut down on friction so all those individual fibers can just glide past each other while the machines are pulling and combing them. This stops them from snagging and breaking. And as a nice little bonus, it actually helps keep the machinery clean. The water, on the other hand, is all about flexibility. See, a totally dry jute fiber is brittle. It'll snap really easily under all that tension. The water makes the fiber more pliable, and it increases what's called its extensibility. Basically, its ability to stretch just a little bit before it breaks. This is huge for reducing waste.
Okay, so the fibers are batched, they're carded, they're drawn, they're spun, and we finally have yarn. So how do we measure it? And what does it actually become?
All right, this next part is a really key measurement, so pay close attention. To measure yarn thickness, or count, the jute industry uses a unit called pounds per spindle. Now, a spindle is just a fixed length, 14,400 yards. The count is simply how much that length weighs in pounds. So here's the key takeaway. A heavier yarn is a thicker yarn. An 8-pound yarn is thicker and heavier than a 7-pound yarn. Simple as that. And this whole process creates all different kinds of yarn. You've got warp and weft yarns, which are the threads that run vertically and horizontally when you're weaving fabrics like Hessian, you probably know it as burlap, or heavy-duty sacks. Then you've got special yarns for things like carpet backing cloth, or CBC. And of course, all kinds of twines in different thicknesses. And all of that hard work, all that science and machinery, it leads to this, an incredible variety of products. From super durable rugs and sacks to stylish handbags and all sorts of home decor. It just shows you how amazingly versatile this natural fiber really is. So the next time you see a simple jute product, you'll know about the incredible journey it took to get there. Which leaves us with one final thought. Think about that initial recipe, that blend of fibers in the batch. How much do those early decisions really end up defining everything about the final product in your hands? Its look, its feel, and even its price?